An absolutely glorious day here at Spring Vale Lakes, and a perfect opportunity for me to talk to you guys about some springtime method feeder fishing, which has to be one of my absolute favourites when it comes to simplicity and effectiveness. It is unbelievably effective. Not even been fishing that long, and it's been a fish every single cast so far, which is just fantastic. Obviously it's a credit to this wonderful place, but also how easy you can make your fishing. I've got absolutely next to no tackle with me today, simple baits, but if you get everything right, you can have an incredible day, and that is what I'm going to show you guys today. So like a little bit of a in-session style video, and we'll keep it short and sweet. We'll make sure you guys understand exactly what you need to do so you can go out and have a great day's fishing, because sometimes you might just want a couple of hours, or you might want to use it in a match for a couple of hours. It doesn't have to be super complicated, but you've got to make sure you're getting everything bang right, because if you do, you can have a great day like I am today. So let's take a little look at what I'm doing. Unhook this, and this is typical of the fish that we've been catching. They're like anything from £2 to £5 at the moment. So anywhere where you're going, where there's some carp and you've got these sorts of fish, then I'm sure you're going to have a great day. So my approach is pretty straightforward, and I base everything when I come out on trying to keep it as simple as possible. I've got some fishery pellets. It's fishery pellets here today, and I always prepare any sort of pellets. I think you get sort of two choices here. You can have that Scretiny type pellet or Coppins. This is a Scretiny type pellet. Literally just a little bit of water on them. As soon as I picked them up here from the fishery, I got some water on them, didn't quite cover them, just nearly covered, and then left them. Allowed me to chat with the guys here, get my gear out and get set up, and they've all swollen up nicely so they're soft all the way through. Now, with any sort of pellet, you can find a range of like stickiness. Sometimes some pellets are a bit sticky. A lot of the time, especially like the Scretiny type pellets, you nip them together and they just fall apart. So you need something to bind them together. So what I've done is I've just put a very light dusting of the meaty mussel groundbait on there. So you get like this extra kick of scent, smell, which I think is really good, like a little bit of sort of activeness from your bait, because this is dry groundbait. I've literally straight from the bag, but you can tell there's not loads on there, but just when you nip it together, it all fills the gaps, look, and it binds your pellets nicely. But because the groundbait is dry when it goes on, it means that you don't get a clag. It just means that your bait naturally still breaks down super, super easily. Now, obviously I've kept the setup simple. Got a 30 gram small ICS, got an ICS 360 bead here at the bottom, 4-inch hook length with a 16 kKh and a little bayonet on there. And the reason I've got a bayonet on there is because I want a nice durable hook bait. So I'm giving the old meaty mussel 8mm spikums a go. Now these are a lovely hook bait because they're a very neutral colour, and I do enjoy it when a new colour comes out. And we talked about this for a while actually with this colour of these. And what we've done is done it like a washed out style green. Obviously you get a lot of green ground baits, you get a lot of that sort of colour in fisheries these days. And doing it in that washed out way, I just feel like it just replicates that sort of paley, pellety colour, that sort of thing. It's not like a standout, it's got a fleck of washed out pink in it as well. So it's just something that the fish sort of almost proceed to without caution. It's not that bright pink bait, which you know I love. I absolutely love a bright pink bait from time to time. But I tend to find on these sort of like more densely stocked fisheries that are very heavily fished, and there's a lot of people always at Spring Vale because it's so good, these sort of baits can work brilliantly. So it's really dead simple. I've got some ground bait too, but I'll touch on that in a minute. Just going to load this one up for you, show you what the crack is. So when there's a lot of fish, for a lot of time research, I've always found it best to half fill that mould. So you've got half fill there with pellets, lay that wafter bang in the middle and just give it a little press down so it holds its place. That's very, very, very important. And then load this up so it's almost like slightly overloaded, if you like, and then I just press it down so I've got a nice full level measure in my mould every time. Fold your method feeder over, give it a squeeze. Just be careful not to have your line too tight to your tip. That can sometimes pull the feeder out of position. And there you go, look, you've got the perfectly loaded method feeder. And I always like to start with pellets. They're always my preferred starting point. I can use ground bait to draw the fish in. Now, I'm fishing across to an island today, and it's a bit further here at Spring Vale. It's probably 30, 35 metres. It's a relatively decent chuck, which I like. It means I've got to have a little bit of skill involved. And I've just clipped up to be anywhere within the last metre of the island. That's where you tend to find the fish are this time of year. They're pushing towards the shallowest water. You can see there, just sort of bounce that in. And I'm hitting my clip a little bit further back and I'm mixing it up. I'm trying to find anywhere in that last little bit. I don't tend to worry too much about tightening up because I know that, you know, sinking your line and all that, I don't really need to do that. I'm fishing for quick bites today. So while I've chucked that out, why don't we have a little look at how I've mixed this ground bait up, because I'm going to talk about that and when to get that into your peg to make something happen. Right, I'm going to show you how I mix the ground bait up because it's slightly different to what you would do on a pole. I'm looking for ground bait that's relatively strong and is going to allow me to draw some fish in. So we've got a new ground bait at the moment called Meaty Mussel, and if you've ever used Match Method Mix, which you'll know is one of my favourite ground baits, this is very much a similar style, but what we've done is we've added some rich mussel meal in there. Now, mussel meal is a really highly potent ingredient, and it's been incredibly popular with a lot of anglers for a long time. We know its power of drawing in fish, so we wanted to create a ground bait where we added it into it. So the base is similar to Match Method if you wanted to get sort of a consistency and stickiness feel for what I'm talking about, but that extra strength that goes in there with that mussel meal is going to mean this is a more stronger ground bait and something that's going to be more powerful for drawing fish, which, as I'll talk about when we're back on the box, is what I'm looking to use this for. Now, I don't want it to be over wet. Whenever you're method feeder fishing, you don't want to be doing that way of mixing the ground bait where you make it all claggy, because that isn't what you want. You need a ground bait that sticks together and then breaks down fast. Now, to do that, you want a drier, stickier ground bait, and that's how I would class this. It's relatively fine, and there's crushed expander, crushed pellet, and a little bit of crushed halibut in there as well. So it's a lovely combination. So you don't want loads, probably about half a bag I tend to mix up, which is what I had left in here from my previous session. So we'll pop that into there. And when you're mixing it up, like I say, don't go to that sloppy consistency that we usually do with these ground baits. Mix it up like you would do a more traditional style ground bait, where you're going to get it nice and damp, but damp is all I want you to get it. So once I've just blasted this round a little bit, and remember, this is still going to dry out to almost bone dry. So you've still got to give it some water. So how it is right now, look, I can make it into a ball that's nice and sticky. Not that slop that you usually see. I can probably even give it a little bit more water there, because I know it will swell up and dry out still. And what I don't want is, I don't want dust. I don't want something that's bone dry, but I want something that's on the dry side of ground bait, and that is what this will be. So at the moment, I would say I've mixed this up to like a normal wetness, and I know that's hard to describe, but it's not overly wet, it's not dry. Look, it molds into a nice formed ball, and that will dry out in the next 20 minutes. This will be really, really dry, and by the time we get back on the box, you'll see why I like it like this for method feeder fishing. It smells incredible, by the way, and a great colour. So this is the sort of way you want to be mixing it up. Let's get back on the box and see exactly how I'm using it. Round she goes again. Absolutely brilliant. Such good fishing. And one of the things that I think is important and I want to touch on is, it says 1:30 on my stopwatch there. And I always think with this type of fishing, you want to be active. It's not like when you're on a big water sort of targeting a few bigger fish. This is a aggressive way of feeding to a feature. So I always pick a feature like an island or a long margin or something like that, and I can be aggressive with the fishing, and that means the maximum wait for me is 2 minutes. So even if I don't get a fish within 2 minutes, I'm winding my feeder in and chucking it out again. And the very nature of that is that I'm in and out all the time and building a bed of fish, building a bed of bait up that obviously fish can come in and be more aggressive with. Don't forget, I haven't got the issues with like foul looking a few like you have on the pole. The mirror there. You know, I haven't got that issue the same as like you would have when you're pole fishing, you're trying to control your bait. This is about trying to get the fish into my bait, into my peg, feeding efficiently, and then obviously catching them on the best possible way. Now, I can tell they absolutely love these wafters because every single one is perfectly hooked. Take that out there, look, the wafter. And good fish, like 2 to 3 pound, he's probably 3 pound, that one. You know, you can build a real weight and you can have a really good day's fishing, even if it's just the start of the session or hopefully the full session if you were in a competition. Now, one little trick I want to show you, we've shown you how to mix that ground bait up. I've got to be completely honest with you, right? I have a lot more success with pellets around the feeder than I do ground bait. However, what I think I've established with ground bait is that it's so good at drawing the fish in that it sends them into almost like a bit of a frenzy. And if you've got a big visual bait, say 4 or 5 maggots or a couple of worms on a pole, you can find the fish will grab it and you'll catch them. I don't find it as effective on the method, but I tell you what I do a lot, and it is I use it to draw them in because I want them eating the pellets around the method. That's what I think is so successful. So a lot of the time, I will literally have a couple of chucks with ground bait to make something happen. So if I'm getting one a chuck, which today I am, so it's great, I'd probably just stick with the food in terms of that pellet with that tiny bit of ground bait mixed in with it. But because I've made this ground bait bone dry, what I can do is I can either have a couple of short chucks, as in like 30-second chucks, or better still, I can chuck it out and wind it straight back in. So effectively, I'm like having 2 or 3 quick chucks to almost send the fish a bit wappy and get them really in the peg. So if you've had like a little quiet spell, then just a couple of quick chucks with that ground bait, and I still tuck my bait in case I'm a bit slack and I chuck it onto the island or something like that, because believe it or not, it does happen from time to time. So remember, I've mixed it nice and dry. Literally, I'm not giving it an over squeeze. I just want to thump it out to that island and effectively create this real bed of activity. Absolutely perfect. So that real bed of activity out there by that island. And that's what I'm looking to do. And that's how I like to use ground bait. I do find ground bait very good when I'm fishing for like F1s with maggot and stuff like that. But when it's carp, I find that they feed that little bit better by using the pellets with that dusting of ground bait rather than the ground bait. But what that has done is it means that people have sort of gone away from ground bait and they're forgetting how good it is at bringing the fish in. So if you imagine, I'm fishing here with several other people and they're all casting out pellets and I'm giving it that little impact of that nice meaty, muscly style ground bait. It's a real edge and it definitely draws those fish into my peg and it makes them that little bit keener when they get there. So it's just about 6 inches to the left or something like that. So yeah, it's out there, it's into my peg and I'm trying to make the fish active. And what it also does is it means that I'm having like this little burst of casting as well. So in, out, just making something happen. So use that like you would do, you know, like if you're edge fishing and you'd use your ground bait to bring some fish in. That's how you can use it. And it's strange because often you go through as much ground bait as you do pellets because you're sort of using it to kickstart your peg all the time. Don't get me wrong, you can have a couple of fishing chucks if it's a slower day and you think to yourself, do you know what, I'm going to have 2 or 3 2-minute chucks just with ground bait. You'll still got a great chance of catching one on it. It's just that I tend to find that those pellets work that little bit better around the feeder. And there you go, look, straight round again. absolutely brilliant. The impact it has is remarkable, because the fish just, I almost feel like they lose their inhibitions a little bit, because of course they've got the ground bait going around, and then you've got this like perfect pile of micros there at the bottom. So it's an incredible way of fishing. And when you come to amazing venues like Spring Vale, obviously you're going to get a brilliant day's fishing, because there's a lot of fish in here. Don't forget, you can mix it up. There's other sort of spike and colours you can use, but give this one a go, because as far as I'm concerned, and the evidence based on today and the you know, a lot of sessions the last few weeks, they like this colour. It's a new colour. I always like it when we bring out something a bit different to what's been seen before, and the fish clearly don't have any concerns about it, which is probably why they're scoffing it down as well as they are. So another brilliant session, simple, easy. This one's a bit keen, isn't it? And that's what, for me, springtime method feeder fishing should be about. You can either use it for that little burst of time, maybe your first hour, last hour, or if you get the right peg, a whole match, or if you just fancy getting out on the bank and having a few hours fishing with absolutely, I mean, I've brought hardly any fishing tackle with me today. It just means that I can have a really nice session with my nice 10-foot rod, everything nice and durable. I've got strong main line on, I've got 8-pound sinking feeder mono on, just everything's so easy. But still probably one of the most effective ways of fishing on this incredible spring tactic. So there's a good reminder of how to get the best of the method this spring. We will see you next time.